In the summer of 1942, Adolf Hitler stood at the height of his power. Almost all of Europe was under Nazi control. France had fallen in weeks. Poland had been crushed. The Balkans were conquered. For German soldiers, victory felt inevitable. Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union, had not delivered the quick knockout blow Hitler wanted in 1941, but the Red Army had suffered enormous losses. Millions were dead, thousands of tanks destroyed. To Berlin, it looked like the Soviets were on their last breath. Now Hitler had a new plan. He wanted oil. The German war machine was running dry, and the oil fields of the Caucasus were the prize. But standing in the way was one symbolic city on the Volga River, Stalingrad, a factory city, a transport hub, and most importantly, a city named after Joseph Stalin himself. Taking it would be a propaganda victory as much as a military one. Hitler became obsessed. He wanted Stalingrad captured at any cost. For the men of the German Sixth Army, commanded by General Friedrich Paulus, the march east felt like destiny. They were veterans of victorious campaigns. They believed they were unstoppable. Nazi propaganda had drilled into their minds that the Soviets were inferior, disorganized, barely human. This would be another short campaign, a final push before going home. They were wrong. As the Germans advanced across the endless Russian steppe, reality began to creep in. The heat was suffocating. Dust storms choked supply convoys. Fuel shortages slowed tanks. Still, morale remained high. Officers told their men that the war would be over by Christmas. By late August 1942, they reached the outskirts of Stalingrad. The Luftwaffe unleashed hell. Thousands of bombs rained down, turning entire neighborhoods into ash. Fires burned for days. Civilians were buried alive under collapsed buildings. Tens of thousands died. The Germans believed this would break Soviet resistance. Instead, it made things worse. The destroyed city became a fortress. Rubble provided perfect cover for defenders. Factories became bunkers. Sewers turned into supply routes. Snipers hid in shattered chimneys. Soviet troops clung to the riverbank with a single order from Stalin himself: not one step back. What followed was the most brutal urban combat in human history. The Germans called it Rattenkrieg, rat war. There were no front lines, no safe zones. Combat happened in stairwells, basements, and bomb craters. Soldiers fought for individual rooms. A factory floor could change hands 5 times in a single day. Hand grenades became more important than rifles. Bayonets were used at arm's length. Men died screaming in the dark. German soldiers wrote in diaries about stepping over corpses to advance 10 meters, about sleeping beside dead comrades because there was nowhere else to go, about the constant sound of artillery and the smell of rot that never left. Snipers were everywhere. The most famous was Soviet sniper Vasily Zaitsev, who killed hundreds. Germans began fearing every broken window, every shadow, every hole in the wall. Weeks passed. Casualties mounted into the tens of thousands. But Hitler refused to allow retreat. Stalingrad had Stalin's name. Losing it would be humiliation. For the Sixth Army, supplies grew thin. Ammunition ran low. Fresh troops arrived inexperienced and terrified. Soviet counterattacks never stopped. Every meter was paid for in blood. Then winter came. Early. Brutal. Temperatures dropped to -30 degrees Celsius. Men lacked winter uniforms. Boots froze solid overnight. Weapons jammed. Frostbite turned toes black. Fingers snapped off like twigs. Soldiers burned furniture to stay warm. Still, Hitler demanded the city. Then disaster struck. In November 1942, the Soviets launched Operation Uranus. Instead of attacking the heavily defended city, they smashed through the weaker Axis troops guarding the German flanks, Romanian and Italian units poorly equipped for winter warfare. The Red Army attacked from the north and south. Within days, the trap closed. The Sixth Army was surrounded. Over 250,000 men, encircled, no escape. General Paulus immediately requested permission to break out west while fuel and vehicles remained. Hitler refused. He ordered them to hold their positions. He promised that the Luftwaffe would resupply them by air. It was impossible. The army needed 700 tons of supplies per day. The Luftwaffe could barely deliver 90. Starvation began. Horses were slaughtered, bread was mixed with sawdust. Soldiers ate frozen potatoes and rats. Wounded men were left untreated. Morphine ran out. Field hospitals became death rooms. Disease spread rapidly. Dysentery, typhus, pneumonia. Morale collapsed. Men wrote goodbye letters to families they would never see again. Some prayed. Others simply waited to die. Officers lost control. Discipline disappeared. Hitler still refused surrender. Christmas arrived. There were no trees, no songs, no warmth, only silence and hunger. Soviet loudspeakers blared messages into German lines. Your generals have abandoned you. Surrender and live. Stalingrad is your grave. Many listened. By January 1943, Soviet forces launched their final assault. The encircled German positions were crushed sector by sector. Paulus's army was split into two pockets. Ammunition ran out. Soldiers fought with captured Soviet weapons. Hitler promoted Paulus to field marshal. It was a message. No German field marshal had ever surrendered. Hitler expected suicide. Paulus refused. On February 2nd, 1943, what remained of the Sixth Army laid down their weapons. 90,000 survivors, from 250,000. The rest were dead. Captured soldiers were marched into Siberian prison camps. Most would never return. Only about 6,000 would see Germany again years later. For Germany, Stalingrad was more than a defeat. It was a shock to the soul. The myth of Nazi invincibility was shattered. For the first time, an entire German army had been destroyed. News was censored, but the truth spread. Mothers stopped believing. Soldiers lost faith. From this point on, Germany would only retreat. Hitler blamed everyone but himself. Generals, weather, supply officers. He never admitted the truth. Stalingrad was lost because of obsession, because retreat was forbidden, because pride mattered more than lives. For the men who froze in the ruins, Stalingrad was not strategy. It was hell, a slow death sentence. And from that frozen city, the German war in the East would never recover.